This study will compare and contrast the 2004 film The Notebook, directed by Nick Cassavetes, and the 1968 film Romeo and Juliet, directed by Franco Zeffirelli. In these films, two people fall in love despite the fact they shouldn't due to societal expectations set by their families. These films have been highly regarded as monumental romance movies. The film elements help these stories come alive to convey their themes and overall message. This study will align with the question, how do the themes of love, tragedy, and societal expectations in Romeo and Juliet and The Notebook reflect and adapt to the cultural context of Renaissance Verona and contemporary America through the use of narrative structure, cinematography, and mise-en-scene. The romance genre dates back to the year 1896 when the first romance film, The Kiss, was released. This was a silent film that was only 18 seconds long. It was a single, steady shot angle, simply filming the scene. Since then, the genre has exponentially grown to encompass more complicated themes and the true extent of love. Romeo and Juliet and The Notebook classify in the romance genre and connect to economic and historical contexts. The Notebook shows Noah falling in love at first sight with Allie.
Who's this girl with Sarah?
Her name's Allie Hamilton. She's here for the summer with her family.
The main conflict in their relationship comes from Allie's parents with regards to an economical cultural context.
Now that is enough. You are not to see him anymore, and that's final.
No.
Allie's parents disapprove of Noah due to his blue-collar economical class because her family is extremely wealthy and prestigious. Although Allie loves Noah and doesn't care about his status, her parents' opinions eventually lead them to break up. Historically, The Notebook is set in the 1940s. The use of costumes and sets assist in establishing the time period. Additionally, the relationship culture in the American 1940s included quickly jumping into relationships due to the end of World War II. Romeo and Juliet depicts two children falling in love with each other at first sight, but they would be in heaps of trouble if their families found out. The characters belong to families, the Montagues and Capulets, who are the wealthiest in their town. This economical equality between the two families brews up the hatred and competition that dominate their lives and eventually kills their children. This film is set in the 14th century Italian Renaissance. The costume and sets utilized help establish this time period. During the Renaissance, relationships typically emerged through arranged marriages. This norm adds to the reason why it was crucial that the Montagues and Capulets never found out about this secret relationship. Both films depict what relationships were like in the time periods and how factors, such as societal expectations, can affect their outcome despite the love shared. These films show beautiful love stories that ultimately end with tragic death. Although these films are similar in plotline, they possess different narrative structures. Both films begin with two people falling in love at first sight, but face many obstacles in their relationship due to the disapproval from their families. In the end, the couples in both films die while in each other's arms. The Notebook employs a frame narrative structure. The flashbacks that depict the past unfolding love story between Allie and Noah are narrated and introduced by an older Noah reading the story to an older Allie suffering from Alzheimer's. The narration frames the main plot of the film, which is the flashbacks, and reflects on the events that occurred. The flashbacks are the moments that connect the film to the historical and economical context. It depicts Noah going to war, fights between Allie and her disapproving parents, retro costumes and setting, and more. The ending of the film returns to the framing story of old Allie and Noah. Their death at this moment ends both the framing story and the story within the frame. A viewer experiences a full circle moment. Romeo and Juliet follows a traditional Freytag's pyramid 5-act structure. The exposition is the establishment of the rivalry between the Montague and Capulet families, and the rising action is Romeo and Juliet unexpectedly falling in love at the ball. The climax of the film occurs when Romeo is banished from Verona due to the murder of a Capulet. This is followed by the falling actions of Juliet faking her death to be with Romeo. The resolution of Romeo killing himself because he finds the quote-unquote dead Juliet, who wakes up shortly after and takes her own life due to Romeo's fatal decision. The Notebook and Romeo and Juliet end tragically. The ending of The Notebook shocks viewers when both Noah and Allie die while holding hands. The ending is sudden and tragic because Noah seemed relatively healthy. Romeo and Juliet is extra tragic due to the fact that neither of them had to die. If Romeo received the letter, he would have known that Juliet wasn't actually dead. If he didn't make the rash decision to end his life, Juliet would have woken up minutes later and they could have happily run away together. The unfortunate timing and circumstances make their suicides exponentially more tragic. These two films also share some cinematic techniques, but as a whole, Romeo and Juliet utilizes a higher degree of shot variety, while The Notebook mainly uses other cinematic elements rather than direct cinematography itself. In similarity, Romeo and Juliet and The Notebook display shots of nature to display the free feeling of love, utilizing both Close and wide shots apply to the romance genre because it allows the viewer to understand the love characters feel for each other. Viewers are seeing a window into the lives of these characters and see how they interact when they are alone. Nature symbolizes the calm these couples feel when with each other. The Notebook lacks frequent or extensive camera movement and shot variety. Many of the clips are stagnant and simply switching between characters during conversations. The movement of characters, beautiful landscapes, sets, and costumes are used to draw attention rather than cinematographic elements. This beach scene in The Notebook, although lacking major camera movement, fills the scene with happiness and freedom, with Noah and Allie playing in the large crashing waves and the pure love they express. Additionally, the famous rain scene has a beautiful and fulfilled picture with the open water, pouring rain, costumes, acting, and low-key lighting, but the cinematography itself is basic. During this scene, the camera stays in the same position for around 20 seconds, with only simply switching between Noah and Allie's points of view. On the other hand, Romeo and Juliet utilizes a consistent level of camera movement and evidence of shot variety. Many scenes use camera movement following a person or conflict. Furthermore, there is a mix of close, mid, and long shots to display different perspectives. The shot variety also conveys the mood. In the infamous balcony scene, the close-up of Romeo's face adds to the nervousness and excitement of seeing Juliet up above. The long shot picturing Juliet displays her calmness and sets her as unattainable due to the distance. Picturing Romeo in the trees, looking up to Juliet, displays him as a calm component in her life looking after her. Juliet staring and talking out to nature shows that she is looking to it for answers. The cinematography used in these films aligns with the romance genre to show the love these characters feel for one another. The shot types and angles express the waves of love these characters display throughout the films. Both films depict nature because that is the only place they feel free with their relationship due to the pressures of societal expectations set by their families. Mise-en-scene is important to all films, but is significant to these films specifically due to the setting of historical time periods. With Romeo and Juliet, the costumes and setting are key to establish the Renaissance time period. The costuming allows for clear distinction of the Italian Renaissance in tandem with sets to allow for realism and location. During that time period, men often wore tights with larger coats that had puffy sleeves. They also commonly wore large hats. The context of being located in Italy is needed to establish the cultural norms that existed in that location at that time. To create this realistic set, Romeo and Juliet was actually filmed in cities across Italy. The mise-en-scene also establishes the economical context of the story. The similarities in the costuming of the Montague and Capulet families show their equality to each other. They hate each other because they are so similar. The men of the families wear uniforms that are very comparable to each other, with tight-fitting shirts and pants along with hats. Additionally, both families wear respective colors to show their distinction. The Montagues sport blue while the Capulets wear red. In The Notebook, the costumes depict the economical differences in society. While Allie is always dressed in pristine order with fancy clothes, Noah is usually dressed in work or other mediocre clothing. This detail clearly shows the economic differences between Noah and Allie, especially when they are in a scene together. While 1940s clothes are displayed in the flashbacks, in the narration scenes, modern clothing is used to display the 2000s time period. The set of this film shows contemporary America with the use of old cars, movies, architecture, streetlights, and more. The sets of Noah and Allie's respective houses show the differences they face in terms of the economic context. Allie's mansion has large white columns, expansive porch, pristine landscaping, ambient lighting, and more. This house clearly depicts her economical and societal situation. Noah, on the other hand, lives in a country-style, small, older house with a creaky porch and old paint. This house shows that Noah is a working-class individual who doesn't come from much. These sets allow for viewers to understand that Noah and Allie come from different backgrounds and see how this difference can cause issues in their relationship. The themes of love, tragedy, and societal expectations in Romeo and Juliet and The Notebook reflect and adapt to the cultural context of Renaissance Verona and contemporary America through the use of narrative structure, cinematography, and mise-en-scene. All of these elements assist the films in displaying their stories of two people falling in love despite the fact that their families and society say otherwise. The films conclude with tragedy, but still display beautiful stories. All of the aforementioned film elements allowed the films to manifest from the initial ideas and original literary texts. Although these films are similar in many ways, these elements helped differentiate them from each other and allowed them to become the famous films they are today.